Because, you know, Wandeto, the biggest concern here is around the graft, the possible graft and the possible leakages and the legislation around the GMOs. But which then brings me also to the conversation around fighting graft. Have we done enough as a country? Because we can see on the front page of the Daily Nation, actually, there's a big case there. Bad day for graft suspects. You see John Waluke, a member of parliament, risks losing his seat as court upholds his jailing of 67 years over maize scandal, by the way. NCPB. She started also Grace Wahungu. She started the remainder of a 69-year jail term. They're all 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion shillings fine, or 67 and 69 years jail term. Have we done enough to fight graft? Are we heading in the right direction here, or is this graft still weaponized against a certain clique of legislators and people?
Trevor, one of the things that whether you are in the government, in opposition, in majority, in minority, one of the things that people agree in this country is that our enemy number one of development is corruption. And obviously, there has been a lot of talk around how we can eradicate corruption. But 60 years after independence, nearly 60 years now, after independence, we are still talking about fighting corruption. And now that we have the new Kenya Kwanza government, I believe this is something that we must continue. The war on corruption must not be, we cannot afford to give up. And there is a number of things that I believe the government is doing to basically support the war on corruption. The first one was obviously to increase funding to the judiciary. Because if you look at the case that we can see here on the front page of the Daily Nation, I think it happened in 2006, if I remember, or thereabout.
Yeah.
So we are talking about over 10 years. This is the time we are securing a conviction, then an appeal, and we don't know, because I'm sure the suspects will go, to appeal. We do not know how long it's going to take until justice is finally delivered. So one of the things that we must do is to ensure that graft cases are expended with, are dispensed with expeditiously, because a 10-year, 15-year wait, for a case to be resolved, just shows, the inefficiencies that we have in our system. And basically, this may incentivize people who want to commit graft, because they can almost guess the route that it is going to take. For example, it used to be you are arrested on Friday, you spend maybe the weekend in the cells. On Monday morning, your lawyer comes armed with some cash bail, and you are released. And from there, the journey begins. Postponement, you fail to show up, you say you are sick, you say, that's why we have cases like a Glorising, you have cases like a Golden Bag, which have not been resolved. So I think one way of fighting corruption would be to ensure that justice is dispensed with very, very, very quickly. But obviously, we also need to ensure that, the war on corruption is also something that is fair, that is something that is above board, it is not politicized, so that when you see so-and-so in the newspaper, people do not start saying it's now because he is on this side of, he's either in the opposition or things like that. We are really hoping that we have closed the chapter where that perception that the war on corruption was being weaponized to fight, certain people who do not agree with government. We are really hoping that we can close that chapter. However, we have a long, long way to go. And the only way this country is going to grow is if we can stem corruption and a sister of corruption called wastage. Because the other thing in this country, we talk a lot about corruption. Corruption is when you steal.
Yeah.
But Trevor, if you go to a buffet and you serve yourself food that you cannot finish, that is wastage. In this country, you tend to see a lot of excesses that are completely unnecessary. And I've seen the president, has asked that the ministries look for a saving of 300 billion. And I know he knows what he's talking about. And it doesn't mean that any of the government services will grind to a halt. It's just actually that we will now start serving in the buffet just what we can eat, without necessarily leaving all these plates of wastage, all over. So we need to tackle corruption, we need to tackle wastage, and this is something that every Kenyan must support and assist.
Yeah. Jonas, what do you think is the silver bullet to this issue?
Of course, yes, I tend to agree with the Honorable Wandeto on this, on expediting these cases. Because if this is 10 years, within these 10 years, how many other cases have we had in these 10 years? So many. And definitely nothing has been done. It's postponed. Sometimes file imepotea and things like that. So unless corruption cases are expedited and justice and people are jailed, then nothing will happen. Because it will just be the same merry-go-round. And I'm so sure, because this case was in the court of, was in High Court. It was a magistrate. It will go to the Court of Appeal. From Court of Appeal, they will seek justice from the Supreme Court. And that easily will take another 20 years. These people will not serve this jail term because this is what we are used to. And if you can follow this case very, very well, there are so many people who are involved in this case, if you've been following this case, but just the two are now here paying the price. But them also, will they actually pay the price? But then again, it brings us back to the leaders we actually elect. You know, Waluke went again and won his seat. So even us as a public, we also need to know, to follow these cases, know the leaders we are electing, and if they really want to fight corruption. Number two, if you heard the president's speech in Parliament, the shortest speech ever in history, there was no way he talked about corruption. And I don't think maybe he didn't want to give corruption such a big pedestal. But then I hope he will be committed to fighting corruption, even if it was not in his speech. And also on wastage. There's a lot of wastage going on. There's even a time the hospitality budget for the Ministry of Finance was bigger, the treasury was bigger than the budget for Kenyatta National Hospital. And when you talk about hospitality, it's just the flowers, this government tray. You know the government tray, when you walk into a government office, it has cocoa, it has Milo, it has, it has all these things. Go drink tea in your house, for heaven's sake. You can't tell me that the only place you want to go to and have tea is in a government office. Go to a government office for a meeting to discuss things, not to have tea. You understand? Even water alone. You walk into a meeting like this, we have 40 bottles of water for 3 people. Those are some of the things that we need to start checking out. Even as we fight corruption, the wastage, you start cutting out on wastage. You'll get the 300 billion that the president wants to cut off from the budget.